In this video, we're going to talk about, are deal sources any good at finding you rent-to-rent deals? Hello and welcome to the Property Unleashed YouTube channel. My name is Mark Fitzgerald and it's fantastic to have you joining me here today. So today I'm going to answer a question that I get asked a lot, and are deal sources a good source of lead finding for your rent-to-rent business? And basically the flat out answer is, for me personally, no. Now, why is that? I'm going to cover that on this video and more. But I am going to start by saying that I have never, ever at this point in time, and I'm not saying I never will, come across a deal from a deal sourcer for rent to rent that has been as good as I can find. Now, that's not to say that there aren't good deals out there, and that's not to say that they cannot find you good deals. I'm just saying that I haven't come across one that I would spend a deal sourcing fee on, i.e. the fee that I need to pay the person for finding it, and it's worthwhile. What you've got to look out for, and you've got to be very, very careful of, are all the upfront fees that you may get stung with when using a deal sourcing service. So I've never paid for deposits and I've never paid for a refurbishment on a property. Now, that's not to say that I wouldn't. I just haven't had to, and I've always looked for properties that I haven't had to do this with. I structure my deals in such a way that we don't have to pay for massive refurbs, and we certainly don't pay for deposits. And I teach my students to do the same, so that we're not having to spend out large chunks of money. At the end of the day, rent to rent is a property management service. Whether it's serviced accommodation, whether it's HMOs, we're still here to make money, not to sit around waiting for our money to come back to us. I.e., if you go with a deal sourcer, a lot of the times you've got to spend 3 to 5 grand potentially on doing the place up, on putting furniture in the properties, of making it up to a standard and a level that you want to be managing the property at. Also, on top of that, you're going to be looking at about £2,500, £3,000, potentially up to £5,000 deal sourcing fee. We're talking about the fee here that they get paid for finding you this deal. Now, if you're time poor and you don't want the cash flow coming in straight away, and maybe you can wait 6 months, 8 months for your cash flow to come through, this is a perfect strategy for you. Get in with the right deal sourcer. But what I would say is, get in with a creditable deal sourcer before they find the deals, and tell them exactly what deals you want them to find, not what they go out there and find, because they won't always find you the best deals. Give them the criteria. This is how much I want. This is how much I'm willing to pay. Find me these deals and I'll pay you your fee. That is how I would do it. And that is where a lot of people, I think, go wrong. They come up with a deal sourcer who's found this deal. Potentially, if it's a really, really good deal, they don't know what to do with it because they don't know how to manage, a rent-to-rent situation, or they just don't want to. They want to be a deal sourcer, which is fine. But then they don't know how much a refurb's going to cost. They don't know, why the landlords want deposits. They don't know how to structure the deals. They want their fee. That's all they're thinking about. And you can end up with a pretty poor deal. And that's not what we want. I hear a lot of people paying massive amounts, not getting the cash flow that they were expecting. And that's just not the way to set yourself up. We always got to set ourselves up for success, which is why you do need to know what you're doing. So I do have a 10-step guide in the comments below. So if you go down there, you can download that. It'll give you a good understanding of how to set yourself up for success. We also have some other tools and resources available, which I like to share with people. I like to put out there because people did the same for me when I was starting out. They're all free, so help yourselves to any of those. Just download them, watch them, look at them, use them. If they get you a deal, if they help you move forward, reach out to me, let me know that they have, because I'm always excited to find out. If they don't, they haven't cost you anything, and maybe you might have picked up a little learning or something like that. So check all of those out in the comments below. And if you're interested in the rent-to-rent business builder program, over 90 days of support, learning and pushing you forward to build a rent-to-rent business, again, reach out to us or have a look in the descriptions. But let's get back to this deal sourcing. So it's all about really when you can break even. Now, I look at any rent-to-rent deal, and if I had to put a level of refurbishment money into it, I wouldn't spend more than I would make back from the profit of the property in 6 months' time. If you've got a 5-year contract, 6 months isn't a massive amount of time to wait. I would prefer it to be 3. I would absolutely prefer it, obviously, to be none. but sometimes you may have to put a level of money into it. Now, if you can incorporate that into such a way that maybe you pay for some and the landlord pays for some, that's great. But when you're going through a deal sourcer, you don't have that luxury. They've already taken that negotiation off the table in most cases. So you've just got to go along with what they say. So you're very limited in how you can structure your deals, in how you can make the best of your deals. Now, if that landlord wants a deposit, you're a bit stuffed there as well, because then trying to go in and renegotiate to remove the deposit, to say that, you're a creditable business and everything, makes life very, very difficult. So a lot of deal sources will go in there and just try and get a deal the conventional way. They won't know all the skills that we can use to negotiate a win-win situation. At the end of the day, it's got to be a win for all parties. I find with a lot of deal sources, the deals that come my way, they're just not a win for us, the rent-to-renters, the management companies. So make sure that you don't get tied up or stuck with any of those. Now, there's no harm in looking at these deals and things, but again, I would speak to the deal sourcer. I would see how many of these deals they've packaged up, and if they could show me any of the deals that they've packaged up, maybe sold on. Yes, that deal may be gone. Obviously, take off the addresses and things, but let me just see what you're packaging up. Let me see what it is you're going to be offering before I waste any more of my time and their time looking at deals that potentially won't work. If they won't show you any deals that they've packaged up in the past, I wouldn't use them. What's the point? If they can't show you and be transparent in their approach, there's no point in getting into business and doing deals with that sort of deal sourcer. So now let's cover some pros and cons when using deal sources. I like to go with the cons first. Let's get that out of the way. So obviously one of them is money up front. If you go and find deals yourself, yes, marketing might cost you a bit of money. Advertising yourself and putting yourself out there might cost you a bit of money, but you know exactly what that money's been spent on. You're not spending thousands and thousands, potentially tens of thousands of pounds on sourcing fees, on refurbishments, on deposits that potentially you don't have to if you just took a bit of time to be able to go out there and find the deals yourself. Having said that, if you haven't got time to do so, but you do have the money to be able to invest in these things, it might work for you. Contracts can be a massive, massive problem depending on whose contract you're using. So we either use a management agreement or a lease agreement when it comes to rent. We certainly don't use ASTs. Now, whether or not the sourcer has their own contract, normally, or not normally, in some circumstances, the sourcer won't want you to speak to the landlord. In other circumstances, they will. So you can deal with the landlord directly and you can sort out your agreement and your contracts with the landlord. If it's just going through the deal sourcer, they may have their own contract. They may even have their own agreement already in place that you have to take on. You need to read this thoroughly, and it probably won't be the best contract you're ever going to find. So be very, very careful when it comes to the contracts. If you have your own contracts, I would say you have to use my contract. At the end of the day, this is my contract. Give it to the landlord, whether I can give it to the landlord or not. But I would also say that if the deal source is going to remove himself or herself from this deal, that I need to be able to speak to the landlord. I need to be able to build up the rapport. I need to check that I want to work with this landlord first and foremost as well. Not looking to cut anybody out of the deal, but there has to be a good level of transparency to make sure that this deal works for everybody. Again, it's about making it a win-win for everyone. So we've spoken about contracts, we've spoken about upfront costs. Also, landlords can get confused sometimes when using deal sources to find them rent-to-renters, even when selling properties. They sort of almost understand that the deal sourcer is going to buy the property or is going to be the person that manages the property. People only hear certain things when you have a conversation. They only hear what they want to hear, and you have to really spell it out to them sometimes, particularly as a deal sourcer, that this is what we're doing. I'm going to take your property and I'm going to give it to a good property management company to look after. I am the middle person. They don't spell it out all the time, so the landlords can get confused when all of a sudden the deal source is no longer on the scene, nowhere to be seen. You're there dealing with it all, and they're like, I don't want to speak to you. I want to speak to the deal sourcer. That's who I've done the deal with. You can find yourself in a tricky, sticky position. So you need to make sure that that doesn't happen. As I've said, there's a hell of a lot of deal sources out there that are very good, and a lot that are very poor. But if you can speak to your deal sourcer about these issues, about these concerns, and they can lay them to rest, then you know that it's a good deal sourcer potentially that you can use. And lastly, and the biggest probably concern for me is it takes a long time to get your money back. If you've spent even if you haven't had to spend anything on the property and all you've had to spend is the fee for the deal sourcer, which could be a couple of grand, 3 grand, 5 grand, you're still waiting for that money to pay yourself back before you're making a profit. A lot of people like to say, well, I put it at the end, so like the last 12 months, yeah, I'm not making a profit, but for the first 4 years, I'm making profit. Why? Have you got that money back in your hand? Have you got that 3 or 4 grand that you've spent with that deal sourcer back in your hand, and then your profit's coming on top? For me, you have to have your profit. You have to have the cash flow. Cash flow is king. So in that instance, for me, it would probably take too long for me to want to warrant doing the deal. Again, if you want to start with this, if you've got the money, then you can do. But just be mindful and be careful. And all this video is to not put you off. It's to not say go out there and do it. It's to make sure that you're aware of some of the pitfalls and some of the pros as well, which we'll go on to in a second. So at the end of the day, it's about making your own judgment, doing your own due diligence, but just making sure that the deal stacks and is right for you. There is no right or wrong answer. What I would do and what I wouldn't do is irrelevant, to be quite honest with you. Because you may come across or find that perfect deal, that everything stacks up, it makes perfect sense to do, then it's a bit of a no-brainer to go and do it. And obviously, by me saying this, you might think, well, I'm not going to do it. You could obviously miss out on a really, really good deal. So there are pros and cons with everything, and we'll go on to some of the pros now. The right deal sourcer could be all you need to build a successful, profitable rent-to-rent business. That one deal sourcer that knows exactly the criteria of the deals that you're looking for, how much you're willing to pay, and how you want that deal structured, and is willing to work with you like that, then you can leave them to go off and get on with it. Could be priceless to you, could be worth its weight in gold. So don't be put off by anything. See if you can work with people, and if you find people you can work with, then go and work with them. Why not? And again, make it a win-win for everybody. So find the right deal sourcer, and if they're out there finding really good deals for you, happy days. You can sit back, you can install your systems into your rent-to-rent business, and you can start making money straight away. It's a win-win. Again, if you're time poor and struggling, letting people bring deals your way so that you haven't got to market, so you haven't got to go out there and do all the viewings initially. They can do pre-viewings for you to make sure that the property fits your criteria, is a real money saver and time saver. Again, if you're working a full-time job and you need to find these deals and somebody's out there who can find you these deals, then it's a no-brainer. So that can be a real pro as well. Also, deal sources will find good deals. There are good deal sources out there that specifically look for rent-to-rent deals. So try and get in with those guys and girls. Speak to them, as I say, make sure they know exactly what it is you're looking for, and make sure that they're willing to work along those guidelines that you're setting out. It's in their favor to do so, because they know if they can tick all the boxes that you've put there, you're going to buy that deal from them. And lastly, just make sure you do your due diligence on the deal sources as well. You make sure that they are creditable, that they've been doing this for a while, and that they know what they're doing. They're not just done a training course or just started to do this, or they've looked into finding what they think is a rent-to-rent deal. Run the numbers yourself. I've got a deal analyzer that you can use in the description, so you can download that. So any deals that come your way, you can just bob the numbers into that and see if it stacks for you. Okay, don't always go off of what everybody says the numbers are going to be, i.e. the bills, utilities, what the rents are. Make sure you've done your own homework in your own area, and you know what the bills are or likely to be, and you know what your rents are likely to be. Best case, middle ground, worst case scenario. Stack your deals correctly, do your due diligence, and you'll be on to a winner. So I hope this has helped you today. We also have the Property Unleashed podcast, which you can check out on all good podcast platforms. If you have liked this, please hit the like button, subscribe, and these videos come out every week. So I shall see you next week or on the next video. Bye for now.